Hey guys, and welcome to another long overdue episode of Suit Up, the Warframe frame review series. Now in this episode we're going to take a look at the Queen of Melee, the little ball of rage that is Valkyr. Ever since her release way back in update 11, she has firmly been a fan favourite ever since. The frame itself can be farmed on the Jupiter planet by taking on her torturer, Aled V, and the pet he created using parts of her, Zanuka. Like almost all frames, she requires 3 parts and then the blueprint from the market. So what do you get once you build her? Well, you get a frame that's very focused around being able to take a hit. With her amazing health of 300 at rank 30, combined with her armour of 600, she is definitely one of the tankiest frames around. This is balanced out with next to no shields whatsoever, with only 150 at rank 30, and a fairly low energy capacity of 150 at 30. She definitely has pros and cons, plus certain things that are necessary to mod for. Her sprint speed of 1.1 is also pretty decent, meaning that she can take a beating, plus she can also move around fairly quickly, especially when you start combining all those base stats with her abilities. Now taking a look at her abilities, all of the augments have been reviewed previously over the last couple of weeks or so, and the links are in the description below to the individual videos. Her first ability is Ripline, where Valkyr fires a grappling hook that travels 75 meters. If the hook hits a solid surface, she will be pulled towards it. If it hits an enemy, she will pull the enemy towards her, dealing 600 slash damage as well as pulling them down. If the ability is recast within a 1 second window, the next cast will do double damage, and the cost reduced by 50%. The third cast and on the third cast, basically the damage is multiplied by 4 times, and the cost reduced by 75%. The damage is affected by power strength, range by power range, and the combo timer by duration, and efficiency also works with reducing the cost of the next cast on top of that combo energy reduction. It's a pretty simple ability, even though there is a bunch of mods that affect it. It can be used either as a mobility tool to propel Valkyr around the map, or used as a single target crowd control to pull high priority targets down, such as things like spooled up heavy gunners, something like that really, or bombards. If I'm honest, it's not really an ability I like very much. The movement portion of the ability was somewhat made redundant with Parkour 2.0, and trying to land that ripline accurately on a single target with all that chaos going on, knowing that if you're going to only just miss the target, like just to the left or just to the right, the likelihood is that you're just going to pull yourself directly towards the high priority target that you're trying to disrupt in the first place. It's not a bad ability as such. Used effectively, it can be useful. For me, it's not one that I personally like too much. Now, her second ability is Warcry. She lets out a rallying call that bolsters the attack speed and defense of her allies, while reducing attack speed and mobility of the enemies close to her. The range on both affecting the enemies and allies is 25 meters. The allies getting affected will gain 50% attack speed and 50% armor. The affected enemies will be slowed by 30%. The ability is affected by everything once again: strength, duration, range, efficiency. It's one of her staple abilities and one of the strongest melee abilities in the game. That combination of not only the enemy debuffs, but also the team buffs as well, make it so superbly versatile. Then when you combine that with versatility with the superb Eternal War augment, you have a recipe for an incredible ability. Honestly, it's my favourite melee based ability in the game. Now I do have to warn you that when you combine this with a berserker based melee, there are certain melee combo animations you will completely break, especially once you start increasing the attack speed buff with power strength. So that is going to be something you are going to have to experiment with yourself to see how that is going to affect the melee that you actually want to use it with. In addition to that, the speed debuff cannot go over 75% in any circumstances. Now the third ability we'll take a look at is Paralysis. It's where Valkyr discharges all of her shields to stun and damage enemies in a 10 meter radius, draining a third of her shields. The enemies hit by this ability will take extra damage depending on her shield total. So for example, if she has 100 shield, it will be multiplied by 350%, and is dealt in impact damage. The damage percentage can be increased with the use of strength mods, and the range of the ability can be increased with range mods. The damage also can be increased with the use of overshields. It's a very simple ability, and I'm sure I say that a lot, but it is pretty much what this ability does is it opens enemies up for the use of finishers, allowing things like covert lethality daggers to do their thing. It's a chronically underused ability, by myself included. Combining this with Warcry and a strong melee like the covert lethality daggers to insta-kill crazy high enemies, and the high priority targets again that I mentioned earlier, heavy gunners, bombards, that sort of thing, or combining the ability with Hysteria Claws, you can do some serious damage, especially since it's armor ignore with it being finisher damage. Another part, and a great part of Valkyr's arsenal. Now talking about Hysteria, this is Valkyr's fourth ability and arguably her strongest one. Also, definitely her most complex one. There are so many different parts to it. When you activate this ability, Valkyr unleashes a pair of energy claws and becomes immune to all damage. Her attacks do 250 base damage within 2 meters. The attacks also have 50% critical chance, 200% critical multiplier, plus an inbuilt lifesteal of 5% of the total damage she does to the enemy. Now there's a ton of stuff that affects this ability. Base damage is affected by power strength plus combo multiplier. In addition to that, she makes use of mods on melee weapons, so any base damage mods such as pressure point, steel charge, physical damage mods like buzzkill, faction specific mods like the Bane mods, crit chance, crit damage mods, attack speed like Berserker, channeling mods like Killing Blow, also the range mods like your Prime Reach. However, weapon specific mods like Covert Lethality, Syndicate Augments, things like that do not affect it at all. So as you can imagine, your melee build is also just as important as the build on your frame. In terms of finishers, ground ones do an additional 1600% while in Hysteria, and the stealth finishers, you will do an insane 6400% more damage, all as finisher damage, so it ignores armor. She's also she's immune to pretty much any status based attacks, much like Iron Skin. Things like staggers and knockdowns do not affect her. Although things like shockwave mowers will still push her backwards, it'll bump her up in the air a little bit. And honestly, one of the little known things about Valkyr is while she is in Hysteria, she projects an aura around her of about 5 meters. 30% of the damage while in Hysteria that is blocked is stored much like Mame is. It's even displayed much like Mame is. However, if there is an enemy in the aura when the ability is deactivated, Valkyr will take 25% of what that stored damage is as impact damage. The range of the radius of that aura is affected by range mod, so as you can see, there's a huge amount of different factors take into account when you're looking at Hysteria. However, when all is said and done, you have something that is pretty simply the strongest melee-based ability in the game, and one that is under constant discussion on things like the forums. Personally, I'm not a fan of the invincibility, especially since it's been a problem with other frames in the past. However, I've come to accept that it's pretty much here to stay now. It's the common thing that if you want to just easy mode something, you use Valkyr with Hysteria, the invincibility, and you will pretty much do everything in the game with no problems whatsoever. The damage output is amazing, and when combined with the rest of her skills, she is an absolute powerhouse, the best melee frame in the game. Okay, so moving on to modding Valkyr, she comes with the 2 V polarities as standard. She also comes with this V on the aura. So I've added 3 former, which is 2 Ds and a dash. Now this build here is pretty much my Hysteria build. So we've got Steel Charge in here as the aura, Transient Fortitude and Power Drift, which is going to give us power strength, and also that chance to resist knockdown. We've got Prime Continuity for a little bit extra duration to work with Eternal War, so we don't lose too much because we've got a max fleeting expertise on here. Valkyr is such a tight fit that I usually only go with one of the efficiency mods, so I have to go with a max fleeting expertise. In terms of our defense, we're going to go Vitality, Steel Fiber for max health and max armor, and Rage, so as we take damage, we're going to accumulate energy so it's going to be very, very energy efficient. This is more to sort of try and get us into the Hysteria in the first place. And basically, if you ever drop out of Hysteria due to nullifiers, things like that, you've always got the power to go back in again very, very easily. Now in Config A, I've got my straight up Eternal War build, which is more duration, bit more power strength. So we're going to go Steel Charge once again, Blind Rage for the power strength, Prime Continuity for the extra duration. And for this one, because we're not really focusing on going into Hysteria, we're going to go with Eternal War, which obviously is working with that Prime Continuity for the extra duration. But then we're going to go with very much a very, very defensive mindset here. So we're going to go Vitality Steel Fiber for that max health, max armor. Then we're going to combine Quick Thinking and Primed Flow with Rage. So we're going to have that constant flow of energy coming in to fuel Primed Flow, which is going to then work with Quick Thinking to make sure that you don't straight up die when you hit 2 health. Then obviously we've got the Eternal War Augment in here. And something that I'm sure is going to trigger some people, I've got Sure-Footed on here. Valkyr has a passive where she will get back to her feet much quicker. It's like an inbuilt handspring. So I personally don't see the point of putting an extra handspring on there to make it even quicker. So I actually use Sure-Footed up here. You could use one of the drift mods, or you could use handspring if you wish to, and she's very, very quick to her feet. But this is actually something that I've been using fairly effectively recently. It's something I've actually really grown to like for quite a bit. And then we got the Prolonged Paralysis build. So once again, Steel Charge. This time we've got Blind Rage, Transient Fortitude, and Power Drift for maximum power strength, which is going to increase the length of the stun. We've got Overextended for extra range, and obviously that power strength loss there is going to be sort of counteracted with these mods. We've got Fleecing Expertise in here, so we can still use our other abilities a little bit more efficiently. We've got the Prolonged Paralysis mod here, and we've got Vitality, Steel Fiber, and Rage. And I found this build to be extremely effective, and something that I've actually really, really enjoyed using. So it's something that I would recommend. Just give it a go and see what you think. So when all is said and done, do I recommend Valkyr, and do I think she's worth the time and effort to max her out? Let's be honest here, of course I think she is. Those of you that have been on my channel for even a fairly short amount of time will know that I'm not a fan of melee in general. I find it very unrewarding compared to the gunplay in the game. However, Valkyr is one of the frames that makes me forget that. You turn into this literal ball of death, whether it's close range combat with dual swords like the dual Likers, or slightly further away with the harder hitting, slower ones like the Galantine. She somehow transforms melee into a whole lot of fun. If you combine that with stances from Hysteria as well, they are fantastic. The damage she can bring from that too, she's a whole bunch of fun. Whether it's the Eternal War build, Hysteria, or even my recently discovered Prolonged Paralysis one, she brings a whole new dimension to melee that no other melee frame based in the game has come close to. She's also got some fairly rich lore surrounding her. Her transformation from the original Valkyr Gisemi form to being experimented on and ultimately deconstructed by Alad V to fund his Zanuka project. It's something I love, having that little bit more information as to where the frame comes from, how it fits in the universe. It's something that DE are trying to do a whole lot more. What with things like Inaros, with the last 2 primes coming with their own bit of lore and their trailers, plus the other quest-related ones, Mirage or Mesa. Stuff is starting to slot into this vast universe we have, and finally making everything feel that bit more interconnected. But Valkyr herself, she is my go-to melee frame. If I ever want to do a melee-only challenge, or whether I simply want to easy mode sorties with invincibility, she's the frame I choose. Her damage output is incredible when built properly, and I hope that some of the builds I've shown today have helped you with your own builds. Now, I do want to put a disclaimer here. These are builds that I've personally used quite a bit, and I know they work. Eternal War build, for example, has taken me till 2 hours in Derelict Survival, so it's one that I know I can rely on. Same with my Hysteria build. If you feel that you can take the build and refine it a bit more, that's fantastic. builds for frames are far less rigid than the weapons are at the moment. So this is not by far not the best way of building her, but an idea of what I've found effective so far. Now, you can even take Valkyr even further, and you can take a look at the arcane system, which is not something I've really talked about in this before. Things like Arcane Grace for health regen, Arcane Energize. You will truly never run out of energy with that. Or even Arcane Avenger, which will give you additional critical chance every time you take a hit. Or, it's got a chance of giving you that extra crit chance when you take a hit. These 3 arcanes are what I found to be truly amazing for Valkyr. Although another one that can be fairly effective is Arcane Guardian, which is one of the cheaper and easier sets to put together, but further increase her armor every time that she takes damage. Valkyr is a true melee powerhouse, the best melee frame in the game. She's one of my top 5 favourite frames of all time, easily, and one that I would recommend to anybody in a heartbeat. Now, I do want to quickly end on a bit of an apology. I know this should have gone live on Friday. Friday night we had the new event, and then for the next 13 hours I had the fire alarm going off every 30 minutes. And with me being in charge of the alarm, I didn't fall asleep until about 4 PM on Saturday, so things got pushed back a little bit further. However, it's here now, and I would like to see your suggestions for the next frame we take a look at next week. Vauban has some gameplay changes coming with the new Prime, so he'll be done then, and Limbo I never ever use, so I have no idea how to build him right now, and I don't know a huge amount about his abilities. Any of the other frames though, and I would be more than happy to take a look at them. However guys, many thanks for your support on my channel, and I shall see you in the next video.